about it. So go ahead and introduce yourself and then tell us about the school and what class you just taught.
Okay, my name's Donna Wood, and I teach at Glen Duncan Elementary. I teach a third grade, and our lesson today was on fractions, and this was about week 2.5. We're almost on week 3 for our fraction unit.
Excellent. So that kind of goes into the first question. We want to understand the decisions you made in planning for this lesson and how it fits into the unit and year. So how does this lesson connect to and build on students' prior skills and knowledge? What was taught before this lesson and what will come after it?
Okay, well, in planning for this year, we took a look at the Common Core and the major focus, and numbers and fractions is a focus for us in third grade. So we knew we'd have to spend a little bit more time since it takes a bit more time. It's a deeper understanding and takes a little bit more time for the students to master. So we took that into consideration and planned for more time. Okay, I don't know the second part, sorry.
Oh, no problem. What was taught before this lesson and what will come after it?
Okay. Okay, and she wanted to talk about, or she mentioned about having the Common Core. Are you recording right now?
Oh, it's fine.
Sorry.
I mean, it's all chopped
Okay.
up. I mean, don't worry. You can stop
Okay.
anytime. We can discuss.
All right, so she just wanted to talk about the alignment, like
Uh-huh.
how we do vertically, so that's a little bit different. But.
Okay.
Okay, our school has a school-wide, we're trying to align vertically and across the grade within our own grade level. So we took a look at second grade and what the students came to us knowing in second grade with fractions. They were just partitioning and dividing simple shapes into equal parts. So we tried to just pick up and have a seamless transition into third grade. And then we also took a look at fourth grade and what they would be required. The fourth grade standards will require them to do in fourth grade. So we try to pick up where second left off and then get them ready for fourth grade.
All right.
Okay, and then about where they are with me in this lesson. That's kind of, can I talk about that? Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, so students first worked on, we began the unit with students working on partitioning fractions, where they left off in second grade, labeling the fractions, and right now we are currently transferring that knowledge over to the number line, and also including number bonds. So they're taking their knowledge of number bonds from multiplication and division, and they're creating number bonds for fractions. So what would represent a fraction, a whole, with those fractional units. Next, this lesson, we touched on it just a little bit, where they're comparing using the symbols, greater than, less than, equal to, and also justifying their thinking, like using the number line as that pictorial. So we've moved away from the concrete. We started with our fraction kits, and fraction bars, actually concrete models, and we've moved to pictorial models, and with the goal to remove that so that they don't need any support. Okay.
All right. So let's talk about the standards or cluster targeted in this lesson.
Okay.
What did you do to make the lesson reflect the full intent of that standard?
Just, okay, I just typed up something different right now. Oh, here we are. Okay, so the fraction standard for third grade states that students can identify the fraction, partition them, and justify. Sorry. Here, I'm gonna have to lock the door.
Okay.
They're gonna come in. Guys, we're doing interviews, so you guys can't come in, okay? Okay, that's all right. Here, I'm just gonna lock
No one
this.
can come in anymore.
Yes.
Haley, she keeps telling me
You have to tell.
to shut up.
Okay, well, you need to tell Duty, okay? Okay, they can't come in. All right, sorry. They'll lock ourselves in. They go from lunch to recess, and they always have to have a stop in too.
Yeah.
Okay, now I don't know where I was.
It's okay. Take your time.
So what was the about the cluster targeted?
Yeah, it's just about what the standards or clusters targeted in this lesson.
Okay. Okay, so the lesson started with students reviewing with simple partitioning, and that's our fractions 3.1. And throughout the lesson, the complexity of the lesson increased. So they went from just simple partitioning, then they had an activity where they had to label fractions on the number line, and then compare the fractions. So that takes us down to, I think it's fractions 0.3a, the A, B, C, and D. At the end, they had to justify their thinking using or compare the equivalent fractions and the greater than, less than, using the greater than, less than, and equal symbols, and then justify their answers. So they were still using the number line to actually point to the fractions on the number line, so they're still using that pictorial representation, that model to help them out. They also had a task that they had to complete that involved quarter a time period, so they had to draw a clock. So they used a clock diagram as well. So the lesson progressed from numbers and fractions 1 all the way down to 3, A, B, C, and D.
Excellent. So which of the core action indicators do you think this lesson best exemplified? How did you plan for this?
That's a hard one. Okay, I'm probably going to break it down to each core because I'll have to refer back. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. All right, our fraction lesson today reflected all the core actions 1, 2, and 3. In core action 1, it reflects the shifts required. And the rigor of the lesson. Did the lesson address the standards for our grade level? And as I said earlier, throughout the lesson, all of the components of the fraction standard for 3rd grade was addressed. Okay. Okay, in core action 2, the students, the shifts, core action 2 is the instructional practice that allows students to master the content of the lesson. So they were given opportunities to discuss the task. They were given opportunities to share their thinking, work with partners. We worked a lot in our math notebooks. So throughout the lesson, they were able to think about the problem and use different strategies and share those with the other students. And correction 3. Oh, I hate these. All right, in core action 3, it's providing the students with opportunities to exhibit the mathematical practices in connection with the content of the lesson. I have a primarily ELL class, about 89%. So we've been working with Number Talk since the beginning of the year, and Talk Moves, and encouraging and modeling for the students how to explain their thinking about math, and getting them to agree or disagree and justify that thinking with other students in hopes that they'll learn from the thinking of other students, the strategies that other students show and exhibit. Sorry, I have to look again. In the Core Action 3, a lot of the students initially start out with a lot of disequilibrium. They're not real sure. I check doing a fist to 5 of their confidence level when we started the unit. Now 5 indicates a high level of confidence, and 0, like they've never heard of the concept that we're discussing. So we frequently have check-ins, usually at the beginning and end of each lesson. How confident are we in the skill that we just either reviewed, or if it's a brand new skill that they just had time to practice with. So we check back in and talk about our level of understanding, where we started and where we're going with that. In Core Action 3, indicator E refers to the math tool options. So I discussed earlier that we use a lot of scaffolding tools for them, all the way from actual fraction bars to fraction circles. They have number lines, they have a fraction kit that they've made. So depending on where students are in their level, how they're acquiring the skill, will determine how much of those scaffolding materials they use. So we had our fraction kits out today. Some of the students use them to divide the force on their number line in the later part of the lesson. Some students did not. Ideally, we use the fraction pieces to justify our thinking, because they could have a concrete model. They can hold up 2 fourths to show that it does, in fact, equal 1/2. Today, I didn't see a whole lot of students doing that, but they were using the number line instead, pointing to where those fractional units are within the number line. So providing various tools to the students helps support their various levels of understanding, and offers that differentiation within the lesson.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. So we're interested in how the shifts required by the CCSS are being incorporated into your classroom. So just discuss how this lesson illustrates the shifts required by the CCSS.
Okay. Okay, the shifts for math, the focus and coherence and the rigor have changed our instruction quite a bit. By taking out some of the standards, the old standards, we're able to spend some more time in our pacing. We understand that fractions is a major work, so we're able to spend more time, and we're also shaving off those things that are not in our standards. So the focus has been very helpful in eliminating what we don't need and giving us more time. The rigor of the lesson probably has been the Common Core rigor has been a huge jump for us. Initially, when we looked at the standards, there's a lot of conversation that there's going to be big gaps, and maybe our kids aren't quite ready for the rigor that the Common Core requires and demands. However, as we progressed and sequenced our lessons according to the standards, we found that they've really stepped up, and as we increase the rigor and that expectation, they've really stepped up and been able to handle that much better than we initially anticipated. So we're pleasantly surprised with how they responded to the rigor. The coherence I spoke to earlier. We're really working hard at our school, grade level, within our 3rd grade level, and also vertically among all the grade levels, K through 5, to have that vertical alignment as well as the grade level alignment. So our math vocabulary, our academic vocabulary. We're trying to get aligned and be all on the same page with that so we can build, when I get the kiddos from second grade, we can just build upon that academic vocabulary, and that coherence piece is really playing a big part in that. Sometimes as teachers we'll name things different and we call it this in third grade, and second grade had a different name, just like the word partitioning. Second grade started using that last year. When the kiddos came up this year, it was really nice. They have that academic math vocabulary. They know what partitioning is. They didn't call it something different. So having that alignment, we're finding, especially for our ELLs, is going to prove in math very, very helpful.
So student engagement is critical to the work of the CCSS. We want to understand how you ensure that all students have the opportunity to productively engage in the work of the lesson. So how did the students handle this lesson? Did they understand the mathematics of this lesson, and how do you know?
Okay. So engagement is obviously something that we want the students to be 100% engaged in all lessons. That's our goal. That's not always the case, but that's definitely what we shoot for. By breaking the lesson into various parts, an initial opening, today we had a do now part that was a review, and then bringing them back to a whole class lesson. Then we break them into small groups. Today we didn't have a small group lesson because we had a little bit of shorter time, but normally they have a small group lesson, and then they come back and share again as we close, and we have an exit ticket as well. So keeping those parts of the lesson short and concise has really helped with the engagement piece, and also offering them hands-on. So a lot of opportunity to build and draw and think. We use the read, draw, write process where we read over a task and the students draw. There's some type of diagram or representation of their thinking, and then they write, they articulate what the outcome of that task was in writing. So keeping each of those segments of the lesson quick and concise really helps with that engagement piece. And our accountable talk has been really a nice component. We do number talks and accountable talk, and the students realize that they're part of their team and they're expected to be engaged so they could speak for their team. So that's been a big help in keeping them engaged, because the expectation is there that they'll be able to share out for their team, explain their team's thinking, and as well as their own.
All right. And then which behaviors from Core Action 3 did the students best exemplify in this lesson?
I think their discussion piece of their thinking, there was a part in the lesson where they weren't clear on the task of, not the task, I'm sorry, but the number line where they were noticing what they noticed on the things that they noticed on the number line, like 2/4 is the same as 1/2. The directions, which we repeat quite a bit and use the directions more close read model where we read it several times. They read it with a partner, and that to make sure that they have that clear understanding of what they're supposed to do. However, when they moved along into the actual writing down what they noticed, there was a lot of words, and I think the word statement in the task threw them just a little bit. So they were writing words instead of using just the fractions and the symbols. So I had to take a little bit of a pause and re-explain and make sure that they understood that I just wanted fraction, 1/2 is equal to 3/6. Some of the students had a lot of words taking up their whole page. So that kind of revisiting and checking for understanding throughout the lesson sometimes modifies and changes the direction of the lesson. Like we need to take a little detour, and so that constant checking in is I think makes the lesson more successful and ensures that the students are really grabbing the gist of the lesson and understanding what our objective was for the day.
Excellent. Would you like to comment on any of the submitted student work?
Okay, I think I'm gonna make copies of their journals,
Okay.
their math notebooks. So in their math books, the task they have a little label so that they're able to work in their notebook independently, maybe a little bit with their partner to get some support if needed. And then they took that over to a team task and worked on a little window together. So with the lesson, we'll be submitting pictures of their team task as well as the individual one from their notebook. In those their math notebooks, you'll see the varying levels of understanding. Some students did just the number line. Some students drew a clock. The task was potty training a dog for he had to take the dog out every quarter of an hour. So the understanding would be that a quarter represents 1/4 in a circle, and that 1/4 is represented in our clock as well. So some students grasped that understanding, and you could tell by the clock representation that they drew. And then even some students went ahead and wrote out a sentence explaining as well, like he walked his dog at 12, 3, 6, and 9. And some students just had a hard time even, putting that on a number line or showing the clock. So there'll be varying degrees of understanding represented in their math notebooks.
All right. So great instructors are continuously learning. We want to understand what you celebrated in this lesson and what you would improve upon. So reflecting on this lesson, what worked particularly well and what might you do differently?
I think making sure that the kids are aware of the expectation is something that sometimes we assume just because we read something several times that they're grabbing hold of. So I think just more clarification on the task that they were working on, and initially with the number lines. Normally we break into small groups, so that differentiation would be addressed there. I noticed a lot of students weren't labeling the number line correctly, so the next part of the lesson was asking them to notice things about the number line, and when the number line was not labeled correctly, that was impossible to do. So making sure that we allow for that small group instruction is really important. And then we can be aware of those misconceptions and address those at that time. So our lesson, I have a 90-minute math block, so our lessons usually take the full 90 minutes. And today was a great example. If I cut part of that out, I'm not as aware of those misconceptions, and then students have a difficult time with the objective of the lesson. So making sure all those components are there are pretty crucial. At the end, they have a sharing out time and an exit ticket that I usually give them, so I can also get have another snapshot of who's grasping what, and that guides my instruction for the next day. How much review do we move forward in small groups, which students I need to provide extra support.
All right. And were there any surprises or unexpected student behaviors or reactions?
I was surprised to see that most of the students grabbed hold of the problem, the task problem, and were able to represent that in so many ways. Some added the number bonds on, which is just coming more naturally, even though I don't ask in that particular task. I didn't explicitly ask that. So seeing that they're using multiple representations of a fraction is really nice. They can use the clock diagram, the number line, the number bonds, and hopefully in all of that they're tying making those connections and gaining a deeper understanding of the standard, which is what our goal is.
All right. Well, that is it.
Oh, goodness gracious! Oh,
you
it's
get
a
so nervous
stress. I need.